Business on top, party on the fingers. That doesn't sound very good, does it? Hey folks, my name is Jen. You might be asking yourself, wow, you have an actual button-up top on and there's no t-shirt underneath. What's up with that? Well, I have an interview today, and it's only a phone interview, so why I got dressed up for a phone interview, no one's gonna see me, but you know what? If you look confident, you are confident, right? So anyway, today I'm just going to do a little bit of a wrap-up on everything I read in November. I technically read a lot of books, but most of them were for a manga series, so things went very quickly. So let's just talk about these, like, few that I read right here. So the first book that I ended up reading was The Big Four by Agatha Christie. It is a Poirot mystery. The Big Four are actually four criminal masterminds. One is this like brilliant criminal mastermind from China. Another is this like ruthless businessman from America who's like a millionaire. This brilliant and gifted French scientist. And then this English guy who's like super cruel, kills for pleasure, and can change his appearance as easy as someone would just like change their socks, basically. He is a little scary. The Big Four basically want to take over the world, but the only thing standing in their way is Hercule Poirot. So he must go. So as I said, this is a Poirot mystery. It features him and his best friend, Captain Hastings, who of course, again, is the narrator of the tale. Hastings is honestly not one of my favorite characters. I usually find him to be fairly annoying. He makes stupid decisions, he says stupid things sometimes, and occasionally makes things very troublesome for Poirot or in general, but the man is loyal to a fault and kind of behaves honorably sometimes, so I can't like hate him, but at the same time I do find him annoying in most of the Poirot mysteries that feature him as the narrator. This time he wasn't as bad as he normally is, and I think part of that is due to the nature of this book. It's a little bit different than some of her other whodunits, as this is dealing with an evil force and not so much just one particular serial killer or one particular event that they're looking into. Poirot is brilliant as usual. There are a couple of points in here where it almost seems like he might have had a misstep here and there, but for the most part he is just his usual brilliant self. His little gray cells are unparalleled. And he is honestly, the twists and turns that were in this story and the way he handled things, I feel like he's just the most intelligent detective in all of fiction, and it was great. The villains this time around were a bit 007-esque. They were of course very brilliant, but at the same time they did make a few mistakes here and there. At those times, instead of this feeling somewhat like an old spy movie, the mistakes that they made reminded me more of Dr. Evil's crew from like Austin Powers, and it was just kind of ridiculous. There was a reveal on the identities of a couple of them which weren't that shocking, but then again I don't know if that's because I'm smart or if it's more likely that, you know, Agatha Christie just didn't make the reveal to be that shocking. I think that's probably what she intended. I will say though, the English criminal who can change his appearance so easily, he scared me more than the others did because he could be anywhere and anyone, and that was pretty horrifying. Overall, like I said, it's very different than her usual whodunits, but I really enjoyed it. The climax was intense and fantastic, and like I said, there are a lot of twists and turns in here that just kept me entertained the whole way through. I really enjoyed this, and I gave it 5 stars. The next book I read was Caramo, My Story of Embracing Purpose, Healing, and Hope by Caramo Brown. This is his memoir that basically tells his story from childhood and up ever on his journey to becoming the culture expert on Queer Eye. So I really loved learning more about Caramo, learning more about his struggles and triumph as he went along on this journey to being on Queer Eye. I really loved that you could see going through this how he has taken his life experiences and also his knowledge from being a therapist and use that to really expand what the culture expert, like what the culture category on Queer Eye is all about. I actually ended up looking up some old clips from the original show. I think it ran from like 2003 to like 2007, and I know that I did watch some of it when it was originally out, like the original run of the show, but I mean, it's been years. I remembered basically nothing about it, and I just wanted to do like a look at what things were like then as compared to how the show is done now. And wow, it is very much an early 2000s show. It's just, you can date it pretty well, flip phones and all. I mean, it was a good show for what it did at the time, but compared to now, they almost feel like different beasts entirely, because the show now is very much like empowering. It's not just going in and making someone look nicer when they take their wife out on a date or something, or actually being able to discuss something like art or the ballet or whatever. Like now it's very much about how can they help you jumpstart your life? How can they help you really be the person that you are and have the confidence to be who you are, and like really make positive changes in your life. And I really like that the culture category, especially since he is like, since the new run and since he has been a part of it, has been not just focusing on what's hip or anything like that. It's more what is culture, and culture means something different to each person, but there are similarities at the same time. I really like that he's more of like a life coach and a therapist, trying to focus on helping people understand themselves, their culture, their family, their place in the world, and combining that with the work that the others do on the show as well. I think that overall they've made the experience a lot more impactful on the people that they help, because you can look confident and present yourself with confidence, and you know you're gonna feel good, but you also need to do like the internal work too. A couple of critiques that I have for this book. One would be that personally I would have liked to hear a little bit more about the show and everything, but this isn't necessarily about the show. I mean, it's his journey of getting to the point of being on the show, being one of the hosts on Queer Eye. And also, I think they were filming like either season 2 or 3 when he was writing this, so yeah, I probably couldn't share that much anyway. Another thing is that this almost falls under the category of maybe you should have been careful when writing this memoir. No, that doesn't sound exactly right. I feel like I've mentioned this before with memoirs. Something that was told to me by a professor in college was when you're writing nonfiction and when you're focusing on like a memoir, be very sure about what you're writing, because if you still have too many emotions attached to this piece of writing, you might not be able to be objective about it, and you might not be able to express what you need to express properly in the writing of it because it's still too close for you. If it's something really emotional, maybe you need to like take some time away from it, or even probably work on it with like someone, like a therapist or someone. There are a couple of points in here where it almost felt like possibly Caramo should have done some more work with a therapist, or done some more like self-reflection and stuff like that before he started writing about it, just because of his tone in a couple of topics. But I mean, nobody's perfect. It's a celebrity memoir. There we have it. Another thing in here that is more like a personal thing to me is self-help stuff. I am very much not a self-help kind of girl. It's not really a genre of books that I gravitate towards. I mean, I am in therapy, and I do try to be more introspective and reflective on things, but I'm just not someone who really reaches for self-help things, and I largely have problems with the genre and a lot of the people that are toting specific versions of self-help in general. I guess I'm more suspicious of a lot of people that make money off of others in that genre. So this is like more personal thing. There are some pieces in here that felt very self-helpy, and that I wasn't particularly into. Like, when I'm reading a memoir, it's like, sure, your experience can tell me more, possibly, about life, others' life. I might connect with it, and that would be wonderful, but I don't go to others' experiences with self-help in mind. And he got a little bit preachy a couple of times in that area, and that was not something that I was fond of. But otherwise, I did really enjoy this. I really liked, like I said, learning more about him, learning more about his, like, the adversity that he's come up against and how he's dealt with things. The section about becoming a father was very sweet and emotional, and I think that was my favorite part of the book, to be honest. And I just really enjoyed learning more about Caramo. One note, though, is that there is discussions of domestic violence and addiction to both alcohol and drugs, and also talk of suicide, so just be mindful that those are in here in case that is something that's particularly upsetting for you. I did not rate this book because I do not rate memoirs. The next book I read was In the Teeth of the Evidence and Other Mysteries by Dorothy L. Sayers. This is a collection of short mystery stories. The first two feature Lord Peter Wimsey. When I bought this book, and indeed when I put this on my TBR, I was assuming that all the stories featured Wimsey. They do not, just the first two do. And there's a few that feature Montague Egg, which I guess is another one of her characters, and then the rest seem to be standalones. So I have read Dorothy L. Sayers' work before, but the only ones I've read have been to Lord Peter Wimsey mysteries, so I didn't really know what to fully expect from Dorothy L. Sayers except what you get in the Lord Peter Wimsey mysteries. The first two stories featuring him were delightful. They have the charm of his usual chatter, which at times almost sounds like it is a whole other take on the English language entirely. It reminds me almost of how Bertie Wooster talks in P.G. Wodehouse. It has that kind of similar time period feel to it, I guess, and similar kind of goofy but smart characters that usually end up getting themselves into trouble somehow. I enjoy that. I did really enjoy both of them, especially the first one, which is In the Teeth of the Evidence. That was incredibly clever, and it was brilliant. I loved it. Throughout the book, there is such wonderful, like, tongue-in-cheek humor, and just, or maybe it's like British humor. I really do love the British sense of humor, especially in older books, and it's delightful. One of the stories, which is called The Milk Bottles, the ending of that was so entirely unexpected. I actually laughed out loud. I absolutely loved it. I think that was my favorite out of the bunch because, like I said, it was just so unexpected and delightful. I really love that. Another book that kind of had that feel, another story in here that kind of had that feel to it was, I think it was called Scrawns. It was called, yeah, Scrawns. And also The Incredible Mr. Budd. Like the other stories in here, they had that similar kind of like twist to them that was pretty funny at the end, and I just really enjoyed it. A lot of them had that kind of twist to it that was great. There's another story in here called Nebuchadnezzar, and that's one of those kind of mystery stories that almost feels like it has an unreliable narrator, and I really love that in mysteries because it keeps you guessing and keeps things really interesting. I could kind of tell where things were going with that tale, and I was definitely here for it. The last two stories in here actually had like little supernatural pieces to them, which was also very unexpected. I did not think that things were going to go that way, since everything so far in this collection felt fairly logical. Even when there were like misunderstandings happening, they made sense, and just to have this little bit supernatural elements to it, it honestly really reminded me of Agatha Christie's Harley Quinn stories. Just that like tinge of something that isn't quite normal in this world. It's paranormal. So like I said, it was kind of unexpected, and I really appreciated it. These stories all have like commentary on society and miscommunications, misunderstandings, assumptions that people make of others, rumors, people's greed, different types of greed. And oftentimes this was all expressed with a lot of humor, and I just really enjoyed it. There is one character in one of the stories that like wants to kill cats, and fuck that guy, basically. But otherwise, everything else, I really enjoyed it and found it to be very entertaining, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. The last thing I read was actually an entire series. I did a reread of From Far Away. This is by Kyoko Hikawa. This is a series that focuses on Naruko. She is your typical Japanese high school student. On her way home from school one day, she is transported suddenly to another dimension. It's like a high fantasy world with some really weird and creepy creatures. A lot of them are giant bugs, and that's disturbing a lot. She is able to survive because she bumps into and befriends a mysterious warrior named Izark. That is the 2 of them on this cover, Naruko and Izark. And in this world there is also an ancient prophecy that links the 2 of them together, stating that it is possible that they will release a great evil. This series is basically 14 volumes of total fun. There is a romance in here that is super cute, super sweet. I really love how it develops. I remember the first time I read this book that I was like over the frickin' moon ecstatic about this. It was wonderful to re-experience it again after like a lot of years of having not read the series. I also really love the relationships between the other characters, like these guys, and the friends that they have or the friends that they make over the series. The friendships and relationships that other characters have with each other over the series. Overall, like, the friendships with everyone are really great. They're sweet, they're super caring, they're basically like ride or dies, as the kids say today. Right, kids? Is that what you say? So the villains in here are fairly superficial at first, but as the series progresses, you learn more about the major players and they get some more depth to them, and you can kind of understand part of why they are on this like evil path that they are on. Like, there are reasons for it, or at least kind of reasons for it. The little guys, like the little villains, they're basically like your standard evil bad guy. There's not too much explanation as to why they are the way they are, but I mean, their main purpose in the story is to be like a stumbling block for the main characters to like come up against, and they just really add more to the world in general as they are enamored with power and they seek out power, and the big powers in the world are also kind of like I said, the major players, the big baddies who are seeking the ultimate evil of the world. This has like your standard good versus evil trope, basically. There is evil power going throughout this world, corrupting things, whether it be other people, sacred forests, holy sites, pure crystals. They're just going through and like infiltrating all of these good things and trying to turn them evil as well. There is, of course, the good people sprinkled out throughout the world that are trying to come together and bring light to push out the shadows, trying to drive them out by acts of selflessness, compassion, kindness, generosity. This also really discusses fate, like, can you change your fate? Can you make your fate your own? Like, that's an interesting discussion that's in here, and overall I think it has a very good message that it is trying to bring about the things that we each bring to the world and how each person can really try to make a difference through your actions and words. The artwork is really cute. There's also like a ton of action in here. Let me try to grab an action spot right here. But like I said, 14 volumes of absolute fun. I highly recommend it. And overall, I gave the entire series like 5 stars across the board. This is the whole series. This is all 14 volumes. I was just holding up the first one because, like, this is a lot. Basically, folks, that's everything that I ended up reading in November. I had a fairly slow reading month, I guess, but it was still really good. Really good. I hope that all of you had a great reading month as well, and I hope that you are having a great December. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.